I ordered contact lenses from the dark web. It was the worst decision I ever made. By eekpeek on Reddit. A few months ago, my best friend Jeremy called and asked if he could come over. He told me about this crazy new site of the internet that he had found. I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. He was always up to something mischievous, though. Even as an adult, he still had the enthusiasm of a child when he became excited. Because of that, it was always hard to tell him no. I could tell that this seemed important to him, so I told him to just come over and show me what the hell he was talking about. He came over to my house later that same day. He showed up with a flash drive. He was so excited, he didn't even take off his shoes. He ran over to my already open laptop that was sitting on my living room table and immediately plugged the flash drive in. He had that obnoxious smile across his face. It was the same smile he made when we were kids. The same taunting grin he made right before we were about to do something our parents would be furious about. So much for saying hello. You really should knock first. What if I was naked? My voice was playful. Shut up and come and sit down. Oh, and I'm sorry for just barging in like that, he said just as playfully. Whatever. You're definitely not sorry. I'm going to go make us some tea, and I'll be right out, I smiled as I walked away. About 10 minutes later, I came back with 2 mugs full of freshly brewed tea. I set the tea down on the table in front of my couch and sat down next to Jeremy. I looked over at my laptop, my eyes immediately fixated on the screen. The flash drive contained a whole different operating system. I watched my laptop boot up and start running an operating system I had never seen before. My eyes then shot their gaze at Jeremy. What the hell is this? Is this going to mess up my computer? You know, I can't afford another one if this one breaks. Most importantly, I need it for school. All of my schoolwork is on there. My voice was sharp, but before I could finish talking, he cut me off. You worry too much. Just relax. I tested it out on my computer and everything went fine. Just wait for it to boot up. Your computer will return to normal once I power it down and remove the flash drive. His voice had a reassuring tone. Yeah, whatever, fine, I said reluctantly. About 10 more minutes of us just sitting there watching this foreign operating system load, it finally finished. The home screen was a solid shade of blue, and there were only 2 icons. One was a web browser. The other was some sort of VPN. In the corner was a search bar. I tried typing all kinds of words into it, but nothing came up. Eventually, after I was done clicking around, Jeremy took over the controls. He opened up a web browser. It was a search engine I had never seen before. Actually, it was a search engine I had never even heard of. I watched him manically type in random numbers and letters into the search engine. Before I could even ask what he was doing, he hit enter and a Wikipedia page came up. Towards the middle of the page was a list of links. They all had different names. The credit card company, Guns Are Great, and the One Stop Shop were names of some of the links. Most links had extremely illegal titles and definitely led to illegal activities. Some of them were just downright disgusting and disturbing. I'd rather not go into detail about those links. Jeremy quickly identified what he was looking for. It was a link called the Gore Store. He was always into that kind of stuff. I never understood why. Gore was just fascinating to him. I myself could not say the same. It had to be fake anyway, right? I just wanted to get it over with, so I sat quietly and waited for the page to load. Once it loaded, my screen was filled with obscene images of mutilated bodies. There were videos of different people getting killed in different ways. It was insanely graphic. He showed me two 30-second clips before I had to run to the bathroom. I could hear Jeremy's laughter as I viscously gagged over my toilet. When I came out of the bathroom, the gore page was gone, and he was back on the Wikipedia page. I watched his eyes dart around the screen. It looked like he was trying to find something in particular. Before I could ask what he was doing, he let out an aha. What is it? I'm not sure if this whole dark web thing is for me. Maybe we should just turn it off now. What? Before I could even finish my sentence, he cut me off again. Look what I found. It's pretty cool. I think you'll actually like it, he said confidently. I reluctantly agreed and sat back down on the couch beside him. The computer cursor was hovered over a link simply named Eyes. I was convinced it was about to be the most nauseating thing in the world. I pictured dangling eyeballs or blood-filled eye sockets. It had to be something along those lines. He could tell I was unprepared, and he immediately clicked the button after I gave a slight nod of approval. I was not expecting what I saw. They were eyes, all right, normal eyes. It looked like a business page for selling contacts. It appeared professional, and there was nothing strange about it, except for the fact that this seemingly normal business page was on the dark web. I had looked through their selection and ended up asking Jeremy to buy me a pair. He already had the correct form of currency in some sort of account. He thought it was funny, of course, and bought them without a second thought. I thanked him and we talked about what they were going to look like. We were both excited. After Jeremy left that night, he took the flash drive with him. He explained that he was going away on a business trip and wouldn't be back for a week or two. He said that he sent the package directly to my house, but to call him if there was any delivery issues. The estimated arrival date was 3 weeks from that time anyways. I figured he would be back by then. That way we could experience unboxing them and me struggling to put them in together. He did find the website and pay for them after all. 2 days later, I was surprised when I opened my front door to get the mail and saw a package at my doorstep. I quickly got my mail and took the package inside. I remember thinking these couldn't be the contacts. It was way too early. I grabbed a box cutter from the kitchen and started to slice open the package. There they were. The bright green contacts that had a slight blue fade were in that little box. They were beautiful. I told Jeremy that I would wait, but I was too excited. I took them out of the box and soaked them in the contact solution that came with the package. I looked in the mirror at my dark brown eyes while the contacts sat in the solution. I smiled at the fact that my eyes were about to be a completely different color, even if it was only temporary. I always wanted brighter eyes. I had never put in contacts before, so I expected it to be tricky for my first try. To my surprise, I put them both in with quite ease. It's safe to say I gave myself a pat on the back. I was thoroughly impressed. It was like I had been doing it all of my life. They slid right into place and didn't budge or slide at all. After looking in the mirror for who knows how long, I decided to call Jeremy and tell him about it. He didn't answer. I figured he was probably working, and he would eventually call me back. When he didn't pick up, I looked back into the mirror, stunned by my new eye color. I started taking pictures to update my social platforms. My self-esteem skyrocketed. When I was done obsessing over my new contacts, I decided I should probably make dinner. I lived by myself, and I always made way too much food. I'd used the leftovers for lunch, so it never really went to waste. That night I decided to make a whole lasagna. It was one of my favorite meals, and I figured I could give some to my elderly neighbor as well. I put a pot of water on the stove to bring it to a boil. As I was pulling out the noodles, something caught my eye. It was like a quick shadow flew by my peripheral vision. I stopped and looked around, but I saw nothing. I remember thinking it was strange, but not uncommon. I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. I finished prepping and lined the cooked noodles on a sheet of aluminum foil. I opened up a package of raw meat to cook in an already hot pan. As I went to open the meat, I glanced over at the noodles. This time I was looking straight at them. A wave of horror washed over my face. The noodles had turned into maggots. They were squirming all over the aluminum foil. I watched as some of them wiggled themselves off of the counter. Each time one hit the ground, I flinched. They were big. They were about as big as the top of a pointer finger. I grabbed the broom and the garbage can and swept them into the garbage. I took it outside to the garbage bin immediately. After that, I had completely lost my appetite. I decided I needed to take a bath to calm down and recollect my thoughts. I made some tea, lit some candles, and filled the bathtub. I slowly got into the bath as the hot water touched my skin. It was quiet and peaceful. I finally had the time to think. I closed my eyes and let my head rest against the back of the tub. What just happened? I'm definitely not seeing things. Those maggots were real. How in the world did my freshly boiled noodles turn into maggots? It doesn't make sense, I whispered, my thoughts aloud. When I opened my eyes to gaze at the relaxing setup I had put together, I jumped out of the water. The bath water was a deep shade of red now, and every candle I had lit went out. I quickly wrapped myself in a towel and turned the main light on. The candles weren't lit, but the water was clear again. I didn't care. I wasn't going back in there. I dried myself off and put on fresh clothes. I went back into the bathroom to brush my teeth and hair before bed. I turned on the sink and grabbed my toothbrush. Right before I started brushing my teeth, I looked up into the mirror. I felt a knot in my stomach. I was holding the toothbrush in my mouth, but my reflection wasn't. I watched my reflection sway back and forth. The closer I leaned in, the farther my reflection would back up. It giggled as I watched my own reflection tear out my eyeballs. My reflection's eyes were dangling so low that they touched its mouth. It licked one of the eyeballs, and one of the contacts flipped on its tongue. It started to chew it like it was food. Each chew sounded like broken pieces of plastic. I watched blood start to fall from my reflection's eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. I washed out my mouth and ran back into my bedroom. I sat down in my vanity and tried to take out the contacts without looking into the mirror. I thought they'd be easy to remove since they were so easy to put in. I was wrong. No matter what I did, they wouldn't budge, not even a little bit. I tried pinching it, moving it, pushing and sliding it. Nothing. After 30 minutes of nothing but severely irritating my eye, I gave up. I straightened my back from my bent-over position and looked in my vanity mirror. My reflection was laughing at me. I covered all of the mirrors in my house until I could figure out some way to get these things out of my eyes. They were a pretty natural color, so if I went out in public, nobody would even notice I had contacts stuck in my eyes. I was also skeptical to call a doctor at the time, considering I'd received these contacts from the dark web. I decided to try and rationalize things. I realized I sure didn't want to sleep with them in, so I'd have to stay awake as long as possible until I found a solution. I went into my living room to watch TV. It was the only place in the house where I couldn't see myself in some way. My house looked slightly abandoned. I had blankets draped over anything that could cause a reflection. I leaned forward to grab the remote, which had fallen on the floor. Upon picking it up, I felt a sharp pain throughout my entire hand. I immediately dropped the remote and looked at my aching palm. Every inch of my hand was riddled in cuts. I watched the blood drip from my hand onto the floor. I looked down to find the remote on the ground still. The buttons stuck out and came to a sharp point. They were sharper than a newly opened razor. I kicked the remote as hard as I could. I heard it crash against the wall and hit the floor. With my head in my hands, I heard the television turn on. It was playing a show I couldn't recognize. I lifted my head and looked towards the television. It was me. I was on my own TV. The quality was grainy, but I could make out what was happening. The television showed me walking across the street from the local grocery store. On my way across the road, a huge truck came at full speed. In the blink of an eye, the truck hit me, and I watched my lifeless body drag against the sidewalk. Then it turned back off. I didn't know what to do. I was scrambling around trying to figure something out. I ended up calling Jeremy. He seemed a bit confused and honestly didn't sound like he even believed me. It's like he thought I was joking around. He ended up just hanging up on me, thinking I was pranking him. When I hung up my phone, I slammed it down on my hallway floor. I had been sitting there ever since the television situation. Tears filled my eyes as I heard my phone vibrate against the wooden floor. I picked up my phone and saw it was a text message from an unknown number. "Go outside," is all it read. I tried calling the number back. Of course, that didn't work, considering there was no number to begin with. The caller ID just said unknown. At this point, I was trying everything. What more did I have to lose? I walked past my kitchen and glanced over at the bowl of fruit I kept on the counter. They were all black and rotten. I didn't stop, though. I just wanted to make it to my front door. I didn't plan on actually fully going outside, but a peek wouldn't hurt. At least that's what I thought. Before I could put my hand on the doorknob, someone started knocking. "Package delivery." The voice was deep and foreign. I opened up my door just a tad, and there stood the delivery man. His eyes were wide, really wide. They looked dry, like he hadn't blinked in hours. He had slash wounds across his entire face and down his neck. He was incredibly lanky and tall. He reached out his arms to hand me the package, and I realized he was missing 6 fingers. The wounds looked incredibly fresh. Blood soiled the entire box. "Just leave it, I'll get it," I said quickly. I slammed the door in his face and locked every single door in my house that led to the outside. Once I was sure he was gone, I quickly grabbed the package and pulled it into the house. Everything around me was slowly decaying, even the people outside. I eventually made my way back to my room. My stairs were now littered with nails, sticking directly upwards. I tried to avoid as many as I could, but I stabbed the bottom of my feet multiple times. There were countless bloody holes in my feet. I left a crimson trail wherever I walked. I walked into the bathroom that was connected to the bedroom once more. I pulled off the cover and looked at myself again. This time my reflection was still laughing, but pieces of flesh dangled from different areas of my face. My neck was snapped, and I had a noose around my neck. My tongue salivated black-looking tar, and my eyes were now completely hollowed out. I haven't slept in 3 days. I'm afraid to go to sleep. What if I wake up and my entire house is embedded in barbed wire? What if my floor is completely made out of shards of glass? What if everything around me turns into an ultimate death trap? I'm absolutely terrified. I'm not taking any chances, especially since I brought the box inside. I ended up opening it. There was another box inside. This box was slightly cleaner, but had a message scratched along the top. It was barely legible, but it read, "Open to find out when your untimely demise will fall upon you. Clock's ticking." Again, I figured I had nothing to lose, so I opened the second box. This time, the box contained a handwritten note. "Not all eyes are meant to be a prize. The contacts you contain will show the other side. You can live with this vision or choose your demise. I left you a gift. Now you can decide." I've been sitting here for hours now. All of my food is maggot infested and moldy. I need to go to the grocery store, but I keep looking at the gift that sat below the note. I never really thought this would ever be an appropriate gift for anyone, but I can't help but gaze at this already tied noose. I knew going on the dark web was a bad idea. Hey, it's Spooky Boo. If you enjoyed that story, head on over to my website at darknethorrorstories.com and submit your own story. I would love to have you on my Saturday night live stream on YouTube under my Spooky Boo Roads channel. Just stop by and say hi. Sometimes we read live stories, sometimes we watch movies, sometimes we just have fun. So hit me up at Spooky Boo Roads on YouTube and subscribe to my other podcast. That's all for tonight. I'll see you in your nightmares.